up and sit down.
Festa made a boo-boo, Festa made a boo-boo, Festa made a boo-boo. Hello again, people. In case you're wondering what that was all about, I made a boo-boo. Yeah. Right. I'll pull in Barry Sheene and give you an idea of what I mean. Now, if you remember back when I built this one, this rider come with the bike, so therefore I glued him all together before I put him on the bike, knowing that he would fit. Okay, and as you can see, Barry Sheene fits. I also built Kenny Roberts, painted his levers, got him all ready for decals, and it's it's only off camera last night I thought, do you know something, I'll just test fit everything. So I stuck the tank on and the seat, and he didn't fit. His arms were in the wrong place, his knees were too close together, yeah. So as you can see, just hold him as I turn him. Look at that gap. See, so I've had to break him apart. And as you can see, there's a huge gap. So I'm going to have to stretch him a tad. Now, I've already done one arm and salvaged that. And then I've stuck the other arm on. Ignore the burn, that's me Zippo, and at the moment that arm has got a large area of Sprogo in it to fill a gap, so I'm happy with that, and I can move him about quite happily. I'll then position his feet where I want them, but I am left with quite a big gap in there. See? Now that's a bit too much for Sprogo. So, rider modification time again. I'm going to use my old mate, Millie Putt. And I'm going to make a couple of sausages. I'm going to lift the top half of him off and have a skinny sausage. What I might do it from about halfway is put a sausage in, have a look, sit him back down, see how it looks, and then shove another sausage in around the back there where his bum is. So I'm filming like two horseshoes, like that. First one, second sausage behind it, to create almost like a slice of cheese effect. Squish him together and let it set. See how it all looks, and then go around and fill in any tiny gaps with the old sprue gooage. So that's my plan. This is where it all fails now. Fingers crossed it don't. But we'll have a go anyway, so we'll get a bit of Millie Putt on the go. Not too worried about shaping it at the moment, but I'll get all my pottery tools out just in case. Millie Putt, it's 2-part, like an epoxy resiny type filler. If you mix the two halves equally together, work your putty in where you need it to be, and it will stick to the plastic and fill any gaps. So I'm going to try and figure out how many sausages I need. It's not going to be a lot, you know, it's only going to be a couple of bangers about yay big. Okay, so I reckon that little bit is going to be enough to do 2 halves of a sausage. Let's see more. I'd rather have to do a little bit of filling afterwards than waste too much Millie Putt and have a chunk of it sitting there rock hard forevermore. So Get a bit of the old black stuff in there and all. Try and get it as near as damn it by half and half. Like so. And we'll go with that. I might find actually I only need one. Yeah, let's go with one. For now. So I don't need that bit. Excuse me, clearing my throat as usual. I haven't got a cold. I had implants done in my neck, artificial joints, and the downside was it disturbed things a bit too much and caused a problem. And to cut a long story short, I'm always a bit throaty, so sorry if my clearing my throat bothers you at all. It's purely unintentional. A little bit of water on there and I just start mixing it all together in a kind of mush. Like so, I should have put my gloves on really, but hey ho. A little bit more water just to soften it down. I really want this quite pliable and sticky because I'm going to be poking it in pretty much along that edge. Couple of little lumps in there though. Cure that. And I'm basically shoving it right there. Like that. Get him in place. And give it a squeeze. Like so. Now believe it or not, that's actually for its first attempt not too bad. So I'm going to let that cook that. Right. So I'm going to let that set, and then I can sprue glue and milliput, plastic putty, that's it, that's the word. Any gaps, and bring that out. So I'm going to let him set, and we'll come back and attack him again. So that was a lot quicker and painless than I thought it was going to be. I'll just pause and clean my hands, and I'll go through what sprue goo is. Bear with me. Right, hands clean. Sprue goo. You often hear me referring to this, and all it is an old, empty, extra thin bowl. It started out as a slightly gone off half bottle of extra thin. Okay, and all I do is if I have any offcuts of styrene sheet, I keep them in a pot, and then you feed the extra thin with the styrene. So you would chop it up into small bits, so. Make sure you don't cut your fingers off. Da, 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 da. Oh, shot straight underneath the bike. Typical. That's right. I'll retrieve it. Da 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 da. Like so. So you can see there, little pile of greebles. Imagine this is an empty extra thin. The consistency you want is like Tip-X. See? It just wanted to drip off the brush. Okay. Just like that. Forms a teardrop of plastic. And it will drop off. That's kind of the consistency you want. And then all you would do to make this pot is you would feed in to your extra thin your plastic parts. Okay. Just feed them in bit by bit. And the glue melts the plastic and you end up with liquid sprue in a goo. Hence, yeah, you got it. Okay, and that's all you're doing. You just let that all settle in now. Just poke that down into the goo. And the glue will melt that. Because don't forget, extra thin is a welding glue. Okay, put your lid back on. Give it a shake. And you leave that overnight, however long you want, and it will eventually build up a bottle of paste. And you can use that to fill in seams, gaps, anything you like, and it behaves exactly like the kit's plastic. So, yeah, you can buy fillers. But, me, I do like me sprue goo. And that's what's on his arm there. You know, it looks a bit mucky at the moment, but once that's been sanded with a standing stick and add another thin layer across the top of it, believe you me, that'll work like a charm. And you would apply it just like you would normal glue. So see where I've got a slight recess along here, pointy stick. So it sinks in. All you would do is you get your pot with your sprue glue on it, like so. Just let it drip into the place, just like that. And it will start levelling out and conforming to the gap, just like that. So you leave that, let it dry. If it sinks down, you come back, you shove some more in until you got rid of it. Don't put too much on in one go. Just go at it with little tiny dabs. That's all you got to do. And you'll then see the sprue goo doing its job. Happy days. I've got a little bit on his ankle there, so that can have a bit. And you slowly blend in any imperfections. Have a go, make some up, test it on an old kit. You know, we've all got something in our workshop that is an old go-to kit that you test all your paints on. You know, drill a hole in it, or gouge it, or put a dent in it, or melt it, and have a play with some sprue goo on a sheet of styrene or something. You'll see what it does. It's an absolute godsend. You know, because the extra thin acts as the welding glue, and the sprue goo conforms to any shapes you've got. Happy days. So we're going to let Kenny dry. bit of sprue goo in his arm and the milli pup in his waist. I'll let that cure probably overnight, and then we can come back at it and start doing a bit more sprue goo work, let that set, and then we'll sand him down. So what I'll do is I'll apply the sprue goo, I'll cut, that'll be the drying time. I'll just put a little message up on the screen here, you know, drying 24 hours later or whatever, just to give you guys an idea. But yeah, don't want to film sprue goo drying, do we? So I'm going to pause, come back, and we'll start applying more sprue goo. See you in a minute. Hello again. Right, we've had a chance for the sprue goo to dry on the rider that we had to dissect to get to fit the bike. So he's not pretty at the moment, not by a long shot, but he seems to be able to be removed from the bike. So I'm going to do that. Now this little seat binnacle clips to the two parts of the frame. There's a tiny little peg in there. So I just want to release that. Slide it out from underneath King Kenny's bum. Park that out of the way. Now the bike and the riders should be able to be separated now in one piece. So there's a bit of persuasion needed to get Kenny off. There you go. Like that, and then I tilt him, I release one end from the handlebar there and then slide the other along. And that's now Kenny off the bike. But I'm glad I left this in primer, because as you can see, where I had to do a bit of shaping and that, it kind of wrecked the tank a little bit. So I should be sanding that back down to a smooth finish so that I can repaint that, just to get that back to where I want it. Now I originally planned to go over this grey with white paint anyway, so I'm not too worried that the paint got damaged, but I'm glad that I did my test fit before this was painted and decaled, because I would have been a bit upset with myself for not spotting the rider issue. So I'll put that back on the rack for priming, and I shall repaint that in yellow, yellow in white primer, ready for the bike to be painted its final coat of yellow. So that'll be getting primed later. I shall do that off camera. It's just my usual spray booth setup, painting the airbrush, etc, etc, etc. But there's no point in filming that. You've already seen me spray, and those of you that know my videos will know my setup. If not, it is on other videos, but I don't need to keep videoing the same things. Right, this is going to be a sprue goo session here. Let's see how some of this is actually coming back first, to see what is going to need an additional coat. So I'll just lightly sand around his back and his bum, just to see what else is needed in the way of sprue gooing. Just to try to get an idea and then I can go back over and repaint Kenny's leathers once the blending's all done. But all in all, considering how much cutting I had to do, he's actually come back together quite well, so what could have been a disaster isn't, so believe you me, he looks a bit of a state at the moment, but once this is all done, I had to do a similar thing to my Valentino Rossi rider. He needed a slight surgical procedure, should we say, to get him to fit, so it has been known. It's not as bad as some that I've needed modifying, I must admit. A lot of this I can get back with creases and things in the leathers to get this all blended back how I'd like it. So it's beginning to get it. Just want to come across the shoulder now just to see what sprue goo needs to come away and what can stay. There you go. Not actually too bad. Sorry about that. Slight knock on the door. Poor old Kenny's arms fell off the other side now, so that's not good, but hey. I'll go back on in a minute. Let's get a knife in there to try and get that little greebly off his thigh. Lovely. Shove a bit of CA glue on there, I think, being that that's been a bit of a pig. couple of times that's fell off, so we want to make sure though that I get that in the right place, don't we? Yeah. Cool. Super glue on there. And persuade you to comply. Around about there. We'll just quickly test fit you. To make sure that the hand is in the right spot. And it is. Nearly. Just a fraction down. Like so. Happy days. Let me put the bike safely now out of the way. So that's King Kenny. Pretty much in situ now. So I'm gonna carry on now sprue gooing in places that I'm not happy with. Straight away there's still a gap in his waist of the levers there. So I just want to ease some sprue gooing there. Let that find its own flowy stage through the crease of his thigh. Right. And just let that settle before I spin him round. But that's the beauty of the sprue goo, see, it's pretty self-leveling. I do it so it flows like Tipex, and then I put it in a seam like that, and I'll let it puddle and find its own level, and I'll just sit and hold the piece for a little while, just so that just starts solidifying enough to conform to what I want. So I'm just going to put a little wad of white tack on top of an extra thin bottle, just so that I can sit him on there. And not worry about it moving, so I can shove him on there like that, see, whilst that just solidifies enough. So that's that. I don't think there's anything else now that I can do on the bike itself. It all seems to have come together well enough. A few little areas I want to touch up once I've got the rider and the fairings back on bolt hole. So a bit of malt-off chrome back on a few little spots where I've been handling the model and it's rubbed off, because it does rub off, unfortunately. Barry Sheene is all done and dusted, and I've just been testing rod that fits the tyre. And this is from Twin and Earth Electrical Flex, and I always drill a hole in the tyre and into a spoke, and then that wire will then go for a down through the diorama, and I bend it towards me so it's at right angles to the tyre, and it's just enough for the bike to stand upright. So in case you wonder what that's for, that's already in there ready to be manipulated when I build the dio, and I shall do the same to the Roberts bike. I've already drilled a tiny little hole in the tyre. You could probably just make it out, but I shall redo that, and then the rod will go in and about halfway up that spoke, and it's again just enough to hold the bike in position. Doesn't have to be a huge thing. You can araldite it, you can probably use some kind of epoxy resin on the tyres and glue it to the base, but something like that to me is just a bit more permanent, and if I machine the hole enough, I'll be able to do it so I can lift the bike off so that the peg sticks out. You can just slot the bike back on the peg. So that's what that's for. Yep, it's started to solidify, so I can now move on to the next little area, which is at the side of his waist there. Let's get my pointy stick. I'll go for my small pointy stick on this. But there's quite a deep gap there. So I want to drop a bit of sprue goo in there. Let it run in. And just dab at it until it breaks the surface. Tension, or whatever you want to call it, just enough to start integrating that into the existing milliput that's underneath. And I'll just try to extend the contours up and merge them into the existing part of the leather. And then I'll rescribe me seam. It comes down his back, so that will get rescribed with me little homemade panel scriber. And this, I always find, is such a good little way of dealing with issues like this, is just reattach the pieces you've had to modify together. A bit of milliput or plasti weld, there's another good one, JB plasti weld, and let it actually fuse together. You might want to whack a bit of extra thin in there, a bit of super glue, whatever comes to hand. And then you can start attacking the piece with your sprue goo mix and start getting everything to reconform shapes. And then say, I'm just putting in little detail, some creases into the sprue goo itself, just to try to merge with existing contours, and also cut down the amount of sanding that I'm going to need to do under here. A little crease of its leg, pick at it if you need to. Right. So that's that. There's a crease that comes down and through there. Retain that. And then lose that seam across his back, and that is that. So I just want to build the back of his ankle up a bit. Same with his elbow. Let's just come over onto the existing part because I had to modify his arm as well. See, so try and retain some of that. Still got a bit of a recess there, so let's just try to build that up again. Just enough to do that. Hey. We got a tiny little seam on here. I might as well come around with some sprue goo there. Because like I say, this is all going to get repainted again. Now that I've had to modify him, pretty much got to paint him again. I don't mind that. Now that I know he fits, I'm happy. There you go. Let's come down the front of the seam a little bit across the top, and that will start sorting that arm out. Keep that in place up there. There you go. So again, let him dry, let it shrink back, let it do what it needs to do, and then come back at it again and again and again. Now I shall probably do that, what I've just shown you there, another couple of times. So I'm not going to film that. I'll just come back at Kenny when I'm ready to sand him for priming, because there's no point in continually filming myself dropping in bits of sprue goo. But that's pretty much how you modify a rider, and I did exactly the same with Barry Sheene. When I did his arm, I sectioned it, so I attached the arm exactly the same as I would his right arm, just to get the positioning of the shoulder joint, and then I cut across here at the shoulder, spun it back on itself, brought the arm from where it was coming forward like so, turned it around pretty much 180 degrees and dropped it against his back. And again, I had little gaps and bits and pieces, but I got it into a position I was comfortable. Test fitted his hand, which, bear in mind, was in a full grip position at the time, to get roughly where I wanted his hand to sit, and let the glue dry. The hand itself wasn't glued on, it was just rested on with a bit of contactor clear. Let it all dry. I went round, I'd done all my filling with me sprue goo and all of that lot, and got the arm really solid. Then brushed on some water to remove the glove, reactivate the PVA. And then what I did with the glove is I've got X-Acto handles, but I've got the saw blades. And I went down between every single finger on the glove with the saw to separate them. I then chopped 2 fingers off, flattened them against these palm, put them in position, and then splayed these 2 apart using extra fin to soften the plastic. And I just sat there and splayed them with the saw blade like so until I got approximation of him sticking his fingers out. And that is how I modified Mr. Sheene. Now, I videoed it. I've got a huge backlog of videos to edit at this stage, so I might be going back over myself here and telling you stuff that you may have already seen, but I can't for the life of me remember whether I filmed it on the camera that packed up, on the camcorder that packed up. So I'm hoping I've actually managed to salvage the video file. At the moment, I haven't found it on the server. That's why I'm talking. Pardon me, that's why I'm talking through it now. So I'm going to pause there. Let Kenny Roberts dry. And then we'll come back and we will have then, hopefully this will be primed in white, so I'll be able to show you that. There you go, that's primed in white. And then they'll go off and be sprayed in yellow. Again, I'm not going to film that, I shall do that off camera. And then we could come back and start applying decals, which I will film. I'll film that for you, because there are guys out there that are not too au fait with decaling and would like me to go through. I've had a few emails about it. So yeah, you know, I try to please everyone with me videos. You know, some people want it step by step, whereas others will email me going, oh, you don't need to do it step by step because we know this and we know that. So I'm trying to keep everyone as happy as I can. But obviously, you know, I could film every single stage of it, but you'd end up with a 35 episode bike build, and I think that would be too much. I could be wrong. So I'll leave it there, come back, hopefully we can start some brush painting on Kenny Roberts' levers. I'll go through that again, how I did that, redo his crash helmet, and start prepping for decals and final fitment on the bike. And then we can move on to building the dyno, putting the audio on that and finishing off the speakers and testing all of that lot out. And then we'll have a reveal. So I'll see you in a bit, and take care of everyone. Thank you for watching. Hello again. Right, let's have a quick tidy up. I've just airbrushed the petrol tank and the fairings. Okay, so whilst that's drying, let's go over to young Kenny Roberts. Now, I've done all of the bits and pieces with him, done the seam. I've even put in some expansion joints along the levers just to try and disguise where we had to join in. He's had a gloss coat, and the reason he's so shiny is for the next part. Now, if you remember rightly, I've got no decals for Kenny Roberts, so I've got to make my own. Luckily for me, my old buddy from the Hangouts, Smoo. Good evening, Smoo. I did promise you a little credit, mate. Smoo has been a lifesaver. He emailed me a set of decals from his Kenny Roberts kit. He did tell me that the quality wasn't great, but it was ideal for me because it just gave me a template for the actual size of the decals I would need. So props to Smoo. There's his credit along the bottom of the screen. Go and give him a visit. Nice old fella. He won't mind me saying that. Every now and then we all do a hangout together. Sometimes they go live on YouTube. So look out for the links on that. He's got a YouTube and a Facebook page as well, so the links of that will appear at the end of the video. Anyway, cut a long story short, I printed them out on a sheet of A4 paper because I'm going to be making my own decal sheet. Now, a lot of you don't know how to do that, so I'm going to show you my way of doing it, and if it works for you, then it works for everyone. Now what you'll see here is I've printed out a copy of the decal sheet. Now the ones that Smoo sent me were a bit white and all of that lot, so I've already been in and superimposed on Photoshop images to the same size that I've acquired to get the layout I want. You'll also notice that I've put some writing on here: white background, black background, white background, yellow background. So if I take, for instance, this Roberts logo, now bearing in mind we're printing the decals on our own sheet, we're going to have a blue background or a white background depending on what the background colour of your decal is. Now I don't want to cut around every single letter because I'm a lazy old fart. So I look for where they're going to go on the rider, and obviously Roberts is going to go across here, so it's going to have a yellow background. Likewise for the Goodyear, that's going to go down this leg, so it's going to have a black background, etc. So once I had established that, I then go into Photoshop. Now I'm going to quickly give you a rough idea of why you have to go into Photoshop. The aim is you're transforming this into this. Now I'm going to zoom in a little bit so you can see. What we're on about. Now, if you look at them now and compare them to the previous one, I'll just slide these over so they're in the shot. A prime example of that. There you go, let's fold that for you. There you go, a prime example of that is the Roberts. Now, if you look, it's now got a yellow background to match the leathers. The Goodyear there has got a yellow background because that goes under his name. So I've been through all the ones that have to have a background change, as you can see. Now how I do that is what I'm going to show you now. So I'm just going to move my camera a little to go onto the screen of my computer, and then I'll talk you through how I got the yellow background. So bear with me whilst I just do a quick camera adjust for you. And I'll zoom out and just set the camera. Now I'm in Adobe Photoshop. Okay, there are other picture editing programs out there. Okay, so whatever one you've got, you can use. Okay. So I've already imported the picture. Now all I do is I go in, I select the picture that I want to modify the background to, and I cut it from the image. Okay. I then go into a blank page and I paste it, just like that. Okay. I then zoom in. And as you can see, that brings it up pretty much to a pixel size. I would then go in and select a yellow background. I'll just bring that down so you can see what I'm doing. A yellow background like so, okay? I'll just come out a little bit just to show you some of the tools. decals. There you go. Now you can either use your bucket and do a background like so. Okay, so as you can see, he's now got the bulk of it in yellow. Now if you look closely, you'll see all the little squares, and this is where it takes a while. You go into a pencil, and then what you have to do is change each pixel bit by bit and segregate the letters like so. Okay, you do that on your complete piece. You then come out, zoom it down, get your rectangular mark, and then you would select it again. You then cut it, go back to your original with it missing, and you paste it just like so, and then move it back into the square where it originally came from, and it will be the exact scale that you need it to be. Okay, so that's just a quick glossary of how I do my decals, and you would need to do all of those so that you end up with that. Okay, that's what you're looking for. Export that, scale it up, print it out on a piece of A4, and then just reduce the size. I normally paste this image into a Word document and drop it down to about 80%. And luckily enough, my monitor's above my workbench. I can hold the piece up to it and reasonably get a scale. But print it out on A4 first, cut one of the pieces out, make sure it fits, and then once you're happy that it will fit, mop in your decal paper, as you can see, which is a lot smaller than it originally was. Mop in your decal paper, and then you can have your image the right size. So I'm just going to bring that back down to my bench, because I'm talking about stuff and showing it, and obviously you guys aren't seeing it, so I'll just recap on that last little bit. Now that we've finished with the Photoshop, the difference in size is quite amiable, see? So I reduced it to the exact size I want, and then printed it out onto my decal paper. Let's move my camera. You then let the decal paper dry. Overnight, and then I use a Plasticoat clear sealer that I spray over the page, 2 clear coats of that, and then leave it for another 24 hours to dry. Come back and you've now got a set of decals that you can work with. So that's how I do my own custom decals. Every decal I ever make goes through that process: Photoshop, print out on A4, get it to the right scale, and then I'm happy with what I've got. You then come along with your scissors, cut out your decal sheet that you're going to be using on that build. I've got more than one lot on here because I'm doing other things as well. But you're predominantly wanting this sheet. Okay, that's what you're left with. And then obviously we're going for a rider logo. So you would come up like so, cut around the yellow border, that. And there is your logo for the back of Kenny's leathers. Just like that. Right. So I'll apply that in a second. And Bob's your uncle. So that is a quick guide on how I make my decals. So I'm going to be putting them on Kenny. So first things first, I'm going to quickly make myself a cup of tea, and then we'll come back and we'll apply some homemade decals. See you in a moment.
Hey kid, don't ever let them get inside your head. They'll tell you what to do in life instead of everything you know that you could get. Don't let them guide your life towards regret. I'll fight for what I love with every breath. My past is filled with things I won't forget. I use them all to push me to my best. So treat the worst of times just like a test. If only I could go back in time, I'd tell myself that everything will end up alright. Just push yourself, test yourself, figure out what you like, and find your limits, don't be rigid, always work towards a prime. Surround yourself with open minds, people can change your life. A few friends with intent can help you feel alive. Find a passion, take some action.